The Democratic Party has been the default party of American progressives. But not since the time of Franklin Roosevelt has it had a program responsive to the needs, interests, and aspirations of the broad working class majority of the country. If it is to have such a program once again, it needs to learn from Roosevelt. We don't need to sentimentalize the New Deal to understand the lessons, both positive and negative, of its experience. It went through 4 distinct stages. In the first stage, the focus was experimentation with economic institutions, with the relation between the government and private firms, as well as with the dealings among firms. The main purpose was less to democratize opportunity than to manage competition in the interest of speeding recovery and increasing employment. Roosevelt once said, "The country needs, and if I do not mistake its temper, the country demands, bold, persistent experimentation." And that is what he gave the United States. The second stage of the New Deal began when it narrowed its focus to the creation of safeguards against economic insecurity. The most important and characteristic achievement of this period of the New Deal was Social Security. In the interest not of an insular group of very poor people or a collection of minorities, but of almost everyone, and especially of the working class majority of the United States. The third period of the New Deal was the war and the war economy. When Americans needed to do so, they cast aside their ideological dogmas and allowed the American economy to be run on principles entirely contrary to their cherished ideas. A flexible coordination between business and the government. Within 4 years, GDP in the United States doubled. The essence of the war economy was the combination of massive mobilization of resources for the war effort and radical institutional experimentation. But the example of the war economy was quarantined and later came to be seen as largely irrelevant to the reshaping of the peacetime economy. The fourth stage of the New Deal was the stage in which it accorded priority to mass consumption. Roosevelt had prefigured this narrower outcome of his project. When he was once asked what book he would like to see in the hands of every Soviet child, he answered, not the Holy Bible, but the Sears Roebuck catalog. Let's not see the New Deal through rose-colored lenses. Its achievements were profound, but they were accomplished at a cost. For example, the non-enforcement of the labor laws in the South and the failure to take seriously the problems of racial oppression in the United States. What are the lessons of Roosevelt's New Deal that can guide us in the construction of a new progressive project in the United States? The first lesson is the importance of experimentalism. Experimenting above all with the institutions, including the institutions that define a market economy. More than ever, the country needs structural alternatives. But structural alternatives without structural dogmatism. Alternatives, yes. Dogmatic blueprints, no. The second lesson is the need to base a progressive alternative on a majoritarian constituency. A majority of working class Americans of all races, not a collection of minorities or of special interests. Compare, for example, Roosevelt's Social Security to Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty. Roosevelt's Social Security was for everyone. And therefore, paradoxically, it ended up helping the poor much more effectively than a program targeted only to the poor, as some of Johnson's initiatives were. Everyone could be rescued and empowered within the context of programs that were designed as universal and inclusive. The third lesson of the New Deal experience is that it is not enough to regulate the market economy or to attenuate its inequalities by compensatory and retrospective tax and transfer, progressive taxation, and social spending. It is necessary to innovate in the arrangements of the market economy so that more people can have more access to more markets in more ways, so that the small business person and the ordinary worker can be economically empowered. For a long time now, progressives have sought refuge in initiatives that deal only with the demand side of the economy, popularizing consumption power. And for a long time, the only growth strategy that the United States has had has been easy money, a strategy implemented by the Federal Reserve rather than by the representative institutions of the United States. What we now need is a progressive approach to the supply side of the economy, an approach that would decisively democratize access to the resources and opportunities of production. And the New Deal is the most pertinent model in its achievements as well as in its failures for such an alternative. The fourth lesson to be learned from the New Deal experience is the need to confront the inhibitions of divided government, political stalemate, in a sense designed into some of the constitutional arrangements of the United States. Roosevelt had as his allies a world war and a dramatic depression. Nevertheless, his attempt to mount a frontal assault on the institutions of divided government failed. We should learn from that failure. It will not work in any short term directly to confront the constitutional arrangements of the United States. They are, after all, almost sacrosanct and part of the American identity. But Roosevelt took little advantage of another aspect of the political institutions of the United States. It's federalism. Federalism can be reshaped to serve as an instrument of institutional experimentation. A new style of federalism, a cooperative federalism, encouraging cooperation between the federal government and the states and cooperation among the states, can begin to change the political culture and the political realities of the country. And once this spirit of experimental cooperation is established in the federal system, it will begin to influence the political culture of Washington and of the parties. The fifth lesson to be learned from Roosevelt and the New Deal is the transcendent significance of having a direction inspired by a vision. The most searching remark ever made about the New Deal is that all of Roosevelt's programs failed, but that the New Deal as a whole was a success. The explanation of this apparent paradox is that a structural transformation is not a collection of gimmicks, of discrete solutions to disconnected problems. It's like a current, a waterfall. What matters always is the direction and the fecundity of the movement in creating many different initiatives, all of them transitory, all of them flawed, many of them partial substitutes for one another, but maintaining the momentum toward a goal. And the vision that inspired this direction was less about insecurity than it was about self-construction, empowerment, agency. And the antidotes to economic insecurity were in the service of the development of this power of the individual to direct his own life. There we have the significance of the New Deal for our predicament today. Its great accomplishment, despite all of its failings, was to suggest a way in the American circumstance, in the American idiom, in conformity to American ideals, of how we might energize American democracy and democratize the market economy in the United States, inspired by a spirit. America has been a monument to the constructive genius of ordinary men and women. A long, halting turn from the no to the yes. A place where hope becomes capacity. It needs citizens who love it enough to reimagine and to remake it.